Thank you to everyone who is joining us today. We have a couple of announcements as everyone logs in. So first, we are recording this session and it will be available here in Excel events for the next 30 days, as well as on the Alliance's YouTube channel after that. Secondly, if you'd like to ask a question during this session, please make sure and use the chat or Q&A area to the right of the viewing window. If you'd like to access English or Spanish captions or Spanish audio translation, please use the widget below this viewing screen or use the link we've dropped in the chat to access them in a separate browser window. Finally, this is a webinar type session. The speakers will not be able to see you, but they will be able to see your chat and Q&A comments in the panel on the right. So please feel free and use those throughout the session. It looks like we are ready to get started, so I'm going to hand it over to our speakers to begin.
Hi, everyone. I am Jill Panicelli from Save the Children. Really excited to be here with you today. We've got a great session for you. I know it's Friday afternoon, late in the afternoon, so I appreciate you being here with us. And I think this is going to be a great one to hold your interest. So today's session is about insights from rural coalitions to address child hunger. And we're going to be looking at the work of rural coalitions from two different perspectives. So from both the organizations that are supporting these coalitions as well as the coalitions themselves. So we're excited to hear from both sides and share some great lessons learned and recommendations for those of you who are working on either side of this issue. Next slide. So again, I am Jill Panicelli. I am from Save the Children, and I'm here with my colleague Esther, as well as we have colleagues, partners that were doing the coalitions on the ground in these rural communities. So you'll hear from Melina and Deb as we go along. They'll each introduce themselves as they get started on their portion of the presentation. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Save the Children, who we are, and how we were involved in supporting this particular project. So Save the Children is a global organization, and you've probably heard of us in a variety of different contexts. But here in the U.S., we are particularly focused on education results in rural communities. So we know that kids who live in poverty are more likely to start school significantly behind their peers. It's very difficult to catch up once they're in that situation. So we have programming in rural communities across the U.S. that is focused on early childhood development, getting kids ready for kindergarten, as well as grade level proficiency. We know that those who score higher on their third grade reading and fifth grade math are more likely to go on to future academic success. And so we're very dialed into those indicators of education results. However, we know that we cannot get to those wonderful education results when we have hungry kids, right? This is a major barrier to learning for children. And there's lots of research demonstrating that children in food insecure households are more likely to have negative education outcomes. So that's why Save the Children is very interested in this work in hunger-free communities and why we're really excited about the work that we've been doing. So in terms of what that work is, we supported 3 partners in 3 rural communities in Texas, so Jasper, Brazoria, and Willacy County. We selected the communities. They were all rural. They all have household food insecurity rates that are significantly higher than both national and state averages. 2 of the communities also had a sizable Hispanic population, which we know is also more likely to struggle with food insecurity. And so we supported this work through anchor institutions in each community. And so the speakers that you'll hear from are representing anchor institutions in those 2 communities that also had the capacity and the desire to convene these multi-sector coalitions, bring folks together in their community to focus on the issue of hunger. Next slide. So in terms of Save the Children's support, our support was in two major buckets. So first, training and technical assistance. We provided personalized training and technical assistance on key topics like how do you develop a coalition? How do you prioritize the root causes of hunger in your community based on the data? How do you develop strategies to address those root causes, as well as access to tools from our community impact team. So we worked also with the Baylor Collaborative on Hunger and Poverty, who has great tools and resources on hunger-free communities. And they also provided some training and technical assistance. And then we also built on that with our own internal tools and technical assistance. We have a very robust community impact team that supports coalition work for the purpose of education results, like we talked about previously. And so bringing that knowledge and resources to bear on the coalitions in this pilot that were focused specifically on food insecurity. We also provided data and evaluation support. So also with assistance from Baylor and data from Map the Meal Gap and other resources, we provided a localized landscape scan that allowed communities to really understand what the data shows about food insecurity in their particular community and context. And use that to make some decisions about their strategies, as well as evaluation support. So our monitoring and evaluation team worked very closely with our partners to develop an evaluation plan, to develop evaluation instruments, and to administer these instruments so that we could evaluate both the food security strategies that coalitions worked on, as well as the growth of the coalition overall. So we have a pathway of practice assessment that allows coalitions to really understand where they are on coalition development and growth and identify areas where they want to improve and take their coalition to the next level of collaboration. So we'll talk a little bit more later about what Save the Children learned from this pilot and how what we intend to do going forward. But now first, we are going to turn it over to the coalitions to give a sense of how this all came together for them and their experience working in coalition. So I'm going to turn it over to Melina from Brazoria.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melina Gutierrez, and I'm the coordinator for the Hunger Free Coalition of Brazoria County. And just a little bit of my background, I'm from education. I spent 36 years as an educator, teacher, assistant principal, and even in private head of school. So I know a lot about education and children and in poverty, but I found out that I had a lot to learn about food insecurity and how to address those issues. So we started, I'm employed by Harvest for the Hungry. Harvest is a nonprofit organization. We're a 61-acre farm that's USDA certified organic. Everything that we grow, we give back to our community. We have a robust education program. We educate from toddlers all the way to adults with different classes, and with the purpose being of teaching people you can grow plants, you can farm, and take that back to your community and help it to become more resilient. So Harvest partnered with Save the Children and the Baylor Collaborative. We trained with Baylor first, and that was fantastic training. We got the format of how coalitions form, and then Save the Children provided so much technical support that was so important for us to be able to form our coalition. And my first job was to go out and to meet with lots of people. And I did that. I was excited about our first meeting, and it came about. And out of all those people, 7 showed up. So my first thought was, I'm going to get fired. But that didn't happen. It was actually some divine intervention because everyone that attended was so passionate about helping people with food insecurity. So we were able to do a great deal of work with a small group. Change the slide, please. And so the first thing that we did is we listed the assets of our community and the barriers. And we looked at the barriers, and we were able to drill down to the root causes of what was happening in our community. And we developed 4 areas that we wanted to work on, and that was children, single parents, elderly, and veterans and their families. That led us to develop action plans. Change the slide, please. So we were able to develop our mission, which was for the food insecure in Brazoria County to have greater access and consumption of healthy food. We had action strategies, Bridge the Gap Project, which I'll talk about in a moment, Food and Finance for Single Parents, which was a cohort. We had our first cohort this past spring, and then we had a hunger-free summit. Change slide. So the way that we came about with all of this is we used the landscape analysis and the data that was contained within that. And it showed that Southern Brazoria County, especially 2 zip code areas, have the highest rate of poverty, the highest rate of food insecurity, and things came about that became apparent is that it's a food desert. And we had one grocery store that was located in these zip codes. The nearest grocery stores were 10 to 15 miles away. We do not have a good transit system. So basically, it was not grocery stores, but it's convenience stores and Dollar General. In 2004, Hurricane Beryl came through. It devastated our community. We had a lot of damage at the farm, but it also damaged the one store that we had where it could not be open. And so it took about 7 to 8 months for everyone to get back on track, but especially the store. But when it did open, the prices of the food and the meat and the vegetables were much higher than the superstores that were 10 to 15 miles away. So we knew that created an issue for the children in this area. Change the slide, please. And we looked at our assets, which is our local school district, had free breakfast and free lunch for all children, which was fabulous. But that didn't happen during extended breaks from school. These children can go from 9 to 16 days without the healthy food source. And we do have an active backpack program from a local food pantry. The executive director is part of our coalition. And what she explained is on extended breaks, we can give a little bit extra, but we cannot sustain them during that time. So knowing that we're in a food desert, knowing the high rate of poverty, this is where the Bridge the Gap project began. And what we wanted to do was bridge the gap between the beginning of a school holiday and the end when they return to school. Change the slide, please. So we had the questions of how do we begin? To whom do we give the food? Where do we get the food? We formed our plan on November 7th, and we knew 3 weeks away was Thanksgiving. We knew we couldn't do everything we wanted, but we started small. So the at-risk coordinator for Brazosport also serves in our coalition, is very passionate about helping those that are food insecure. So we worked with her, and there were 10 identified families that were homeless, and they were the most in need in the district. And so we started small with those 10 families. Change the slide. So Thanksgiving break, we served 10 families. And then we grew with the winter break. We partnered with Salvation Army and the Brazosport Rotary Club, and we were able to serve 50 families. But we wanted to get back to the original action strategy of Bridge the Gap, and that was children. So we decided to use the backpack program as the way to identify children. We know that they were food insecure, and it was an easier way to communicate and be able to help those children in need. And so we partnered, we had 5 schools, 93 children, and our packing party, we had lots of food. 6 people, including myself, packed over 4,067 pounds of food, and 3 people, including myself, delivered it to the schools. So it was a lot of food. We were excited because each child received about 32 pounds of food, which was 9 days, 3 meals a day. And the distribution was supported by a grant from Save the Children. And from there, we have grown our program. So we did summer break for 6 weeks, and we did our fall break just a few weeks ago. And now we are getting ready for our Thanksgiving break. And we're actually, we've had donations, we've had our community gel together. So I think that we're going to really be able to help 96 children and 10 additional families. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. During the spring break distribution, Save the Children and Brassport ISD conducted a survey, and it was vital and so helpful. So we knew that these families were living below poverty level. They were food insecure. We knew, or we hoped, that the stress was reduced, and the survey showed that, which then we hoped led to less domestic violence and child abuse. But the most resounding part that resonated with our community were the comments from the parents. So when our community members, and we shared it every place that we could, heard these comments, that spurred action. And I'll just share one comment from a parent was, I don't eat until my child eats. And this time we were able to eat together. And that just tugged at my heartstrings and many others. One local chemical company, we had a representative, and she heard the comments and she said, we are going to do a food drive. And so they were able to collect about 400 pounds of food for us. And then she emailed and said, we're giving a $2,500 check. And that was just fantastic, because that helped us with our summer distribution to finish it out and then to begin our fall distribution. So good data holds the coalition accountable. If you know and you can show transparency of, this is how many pounds we packed, this is what we delivered, this is how many meals, and this is how much we spent. It lets everyone know that their contributions go directly to the program. Change slide, please. Another thing that we did was a first ever Hunger-Free Summit, and that developed unity and purpose and progress. So we had keynote speakers, we had spotlight organizations, we had a panel discussion, we had an expo where all organizations, everyone in our community was invited to this, even our clients. And those organizations were able to come together. They were able to share information with the public and with each other. And so we were able to learn about each other. And that's where our coalition gelled and started to build. Next slide, please. So lessons that shaped us. First of all, know that you can grow. It was divine intervention that we started so small, because we were able to do a great deal in a short period of time because we had committed individuals. Find someone who knows everyone in your community. We were blessed to have an employee come on board, and she was with United Way earlier. She knows everyone. So she can pick up the phone, call someone, and we make connections that way. Use an agenda and stick to it with your meetings. So it keeps people from hijacking the meeting or getting off topic. We were able to follow a process, and we accomplished a great deal doing that. Establish norms, respect people's time, and communicate both the setbacks and the successes, and be open and honest. The POP assessment with Save the Children really helped us, especially with advocacy. We were able to develop that in our Hunger-Free Summit. Minerva Delgado sent a recorded message about SNAP cuts. And so we were able to advocate right there and email our senators that we were against those cuts. Make decisions that's based on data and not on feelings, and do something. Take an action. Show that you're moving forward. And then collect data, make it public, let everyone know. And the last thing is, we always, with packing parties or meetings, we always have food and we try to have fun. And now I'm going to turn it over to Deborah, and she is going to talk about her journey. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Franco. I am the Executive Director and founder of the South Texas Juvenile Diabetes Association, and we host the Medical Health Advisory Coalition. We have one in Hidalgo County and we have one in Willacy County. The Willacy County Medical Health Advisory Coalition is rather new. Willacy County is one of the smallest rural counties in the Rio Grande Valley, which makes up a 4-county area at the southernmost tip of our border. The population is roughly 22,000 people, and we focused in on Raymondville because Raymondville is almost half of that population. The vision of our coalition is to create a resilient community where Willacy County has access to nutritious food and the opportunity to achieve overall well-being. And our aim is to collaborate with our community to reduce food insecurity, promote healthy living, and empower individuals and families to thrive in Willacy County. Next slide, please. Food insecurity in Willacy County is rather large. It's 29% in comparison to households without children at 24%. And as compared to the state of Texas, which is only 16%, it's a vast majority of food insecure families. And that includes many, many children. The coalition members come from all branches of leadership, and they all came together to work through a solution to food insecurity in that region. And I think it was really amazing to hear from the community putting their thoughts together into actionable items. It was important to make sure that members felt like they had a stake in the issues and in the solutions. After many attempts to solutions, it was settled that a backpack program would be implemented at L.C. Smith Elementary School as part of the solution to bridge the gap for food insecurity. There is no, I think it's important to state that there is no backpack programs down here in the Rio Grande Valley. So none of the 4 counties have a backpack program. So implementing a backpack program in Willacy County was not only a pilot for other school districts to kind of see what that looked like and see what it entailed, but it was a brand new experience for Willacy County, and all the surrounding areas were heightened and watching this process in an attempt to hopefully emulate it in the future. So this was a really great opportunity for us in partnership with Save the Children to bring this opportunity to Willacy County, where there is a huge hunger gap. Just like in the previous coalition, you heard that they don't have any access to food pantries and grocery stores. The same is true in Willacy County. So this backpack program really lined up with the resiliency center that the school district was planning on implementing. It since has been launched this school year, and we're hoping that the data that we have collected will help in funding requests as well as community support for this backpack program sustainability. Next slide, please. I think it's really important to understand that as we mobilize the immediate need of Willacy County children, our coalition, we didn't just meet, we acted. And by rapidly implementing a dedicated backpack program on the elementary school campus, we transformed data and food insecurity into weekly tangible nourishment that ensures that our kids can focus on learning and not hunger. The coalition looked at census data as well as local conversations around the problem, and we saw that the backpack program was an achievable and attainable goal for the first coalition project. As you can see here, the distribution was a lot. We did weekends, we did extended weekends, and we also covered spring break. In all, we dispensed meals over 12 distributions to 69 children, 25 families in all, serving an impact of 7,108 meals during the duration between March 7th and June 6th, which was a beautiful, wonderful process. Next slide, please. I think that the power of data is magnificent. 50% of the individuals said that often or sometimes the food that they bought did not last, and that they didn't have money to get more within the 30-day period. 55% of families served had a combined income of $5,000 or less per month. 50% of families were less worried or stressed due to the backpack program, and 56% of families spent less on groceries, which gave them the money for other family essentials. This data is being used by Raymondville ISD to apply for funding, as data is what funders want to see. The backpack program, as an achievable and attainable goal, is the first coalition project. Thank you. Next slide. Go ahead, Esther. Sorry about that. True community power is seeing a problem and solving it sustainably. Our coalition successfully launched a critical backpack program to combat child food insecurity by planning to integrate this effort with the future school district resiliency program. We've laid the groundwork to ensure this vital safety net is a permanent fixture of support for years to come. We want to thank the Save the Children for giving us the opportunity to run this experiment, and for the community to get to see what this looked like in action, as well as the surrounding counties to get to see an actual backpack program in our region. It's brought up a lot of conversation, and we're hoping that it continues and spreads throughout our region. Now I'll pass it along to Esther to share about lessons learned from the Save the Children perspective.
Thank you, Deb. Just as our community partners have learned valuable lessons, we Save the Children, as the organization supporting these coalitions, we've also learned our lessons from this pilot. There are many, but today I'll highlight 5. So first, we learned that the type of funding impacts the success of coalitions. If coalitions are asked to prioritize short-term outputs in a rapid timeline, then they lose time to focus on developing sustainable systems change, which is only possible over a much longer time frame, and that possibly could take several years. So we recommend to pursue funders who understand what it takes for communities to work towards those long-term outcomes instead of prioritizing outputs. And this type of funder will allow rural communities a longer runway, a longer time frame to discuss what the issues and priorities are in their community, to build strategies, to implement it in a very thoughtful way, and not just prioritizing reach and meals and outputs. And so equally contributing to coalition success is ensuring that communities and anchor institutions have the right conditions to implement food security strategies through a coalition approach. We know that there are several approaches that an organization or a community can take, and the coalition approach requires for the right people at the table, the right time frame, and just the right type of combination of certain factors. So first, when assessing communities for readiness, take time to build the anchor institution's understanding of the approach and the local conditions that can lead to success. And it looks different for every community. And in those same conversations, discuss what their pathways to sustainable funding and fundraising might look like, so that there are other resources that are sustaining this work for the future, and especially when their seed funding or initial funding ends. And I think everyone talked about shared transparency on this presentation. And so thirdly, when we draft contracts with the community partners, make sure that the reporting, funding, and partnership expectations and deliverables are not only clear, but that the partners can understand and they're able to achieve them at the end of the award period. So just as it's important for coalitions to understand who does what, especially in a new project, it was also necessary for internal Save the Children staff to ensure that we were aligned across various teams, whether that be program design, implementation, or evaluation. So we recommend using a RACI matrix, and RACI stands for responsible, accountable, supportive, consulted, and informed, where different individuals on various teams have a specific role. So that roles and responsibilities are clarified from the start, and they're also reviewed throughout the project, life of the project, and especially as challenges arise. And that helps to maintain each team's scope and to make sure that each person can make decisions efficiently. And with every partnership, we continue to learn how to share power. We recognize that there are power dynamics between a national organization or a funder and community organizations. So knowing that the Hunger-Free community approach is grounded in locally owned principles, and knowing that strategies that are developed by the communities are those that are sustained and can last long even after we as a funder or technical assistance provider leaves. So we paid attention to those dynamics. We can recommend that from the start of the project period, we invite the coalition to co-design timelines for both building up a coalition and strategy development. Partners know the pace at which the other community partners that they've invited to the table can move. And so this is where the coalition's input is very valued. And as challenges arise in the community, extend patience and flexibility alongside lengthier timelines that sometimes have to shift. This allows room for that unpredictability, which could be, let's say, a natural disaster that happens, and allows the coalition some space to flex their decision-making muscles. And third, honoring coalition autonomy can go hand in hand with asking for accountability. So have regular progress checks with the coalition leads and create indicators that are mutually agreed upon so that the partners can show progress from the planning stage to the implementation phase. And lastly, we heard from the coalition leads that the technical assistance and training was most useful when they were tailored to their particular context. So we recommend allocating time and resources in your budget to strengthen the coalition's capacity for program development and also evaluation. So this can look like providing tools such as support with survey creation, creating logic models, training on establishing a coalition, stakeholder mapping, and also a facilitation method. And we utilized one called results-based facilitation. And especially when implementing an approach that was new to all, we found it useful that it was helpful to have higher touch interactions with the coalition leads. So we had monthly meetings with each of the coalition leads, and then also a monthly group meeting with them. I wanted to share some examples of how we adapted some existing internal materials and made it useful for our coalitions in Texas. So through our community impact team, we have an existing framework for developing population level result statements. It's used more broadly with our partners that have a focus on achieving early learning results. So we adapted it towards achieving a food security outcome. And it uses three components of what population do you want to serve, what geographic region would you like to implement a strategy in, and what condition of well-being are you envisioning for this population within this place. So we provided that framework so that they could develop their goal for their strategies. And then we also shared a systems iceberg visual to guide coalition leads when they're having data review conversations with their members. And this helps coalitions to consider what strategies can address both the visible and unseen factors below the surface that can create powerful long-term change. So some visible factors might only be able to address through short-term changes, but the long-term systems level work require a longer period of time to work on. So that's another model that we provided as a talking point. And I'll end with this quote from a coalition that gets how this sort of a coalition approach can make a difference for how the community comes together. They said, having a space to convene and have discussions has been the best part. This region is more rural than most areas and tends to get forgotten. So just pointing a light at it and creating opportunities for people to talk about what they see in their community was empowering. It allowed everyone to understand each other and collaborate to reach the goals of the coalition. So we see here especially from Deb and Melina of both the Willacy and Brazoria counties, that coalition work truly is the community's work. It belongs to the community. And Save the Children feels very fortunate to have supported this work. And just in a period of a year and a half, they accomplished a great amount, and both in coalition building and in implementing strategies as well. So I will now move us into a time of Q&A. We have, it looks like 9 minutes for any one of your questions. I know sometimes it takes a bit of time to think and to type the questions into the Q&A box, but I want to remind everyone that they have a chance to do that. So we'll give everyone a minute or so. And if you have questions that are specific for our community partners, you can also direct them at Deb and Melina. We have one question. If you were advising a new rural coalition starting this work, where would you tell them to start? Deb and Melina, do you all have insight into this question?
I think you're on mute.
Thank you. My advice would be to take part in about forming a coalition and looking at all those factors to build a framework around. And then the next step is to start meeting with people, to reach out to people, have as many face-to-face meetings so you can explain the purpose and find out what they envision the coalition being in the community.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest things that impacted a lot of the decisions, even the groundwork that the coalition did, was the landscape analysis. We did a survey with some of the community members, but the Baylor Collaborative, doing that landscape analysis really allowed the community to see exactly what it looked like in their region, and it was very powerful.
Thank you both.
And as Save the Children, I would say one of the things that we, I think, wished could have been a little bit different for supporting, these new rural coalitions was having a longer runway to provide, sort of echoing what Melina said, but a longer runway to provide the foundational training and technical assistance to really understand what coalition work is all about, how you get these things started, providing some of those more practical tools. I think we kind of did it as we needed to as those situations were arising. But this goes back to making sure that we're all on the same page of timelines with funders and all of that, but making sure that we build in that proper runway so we can really sequence things in a more ideal way. There's pros and cons to both, but I think that would have been great if we could have done that from the beginning. Esther, anything else that you would say from Save the Children perspective?
Yeah, I think because the coalition approach is potentially just new to a lot of communities, and there are also a lot of components to build up a solid knowledge base, or also educate the other community organizations on how this model, what this model is. Giving time for that information to be processed, giving time for partners to ask questions. I think that's important.
I just want to add that having the support is what made our coalition happen. Having the support from Save the Children, having the framework from the Baylor Collaborative, all those pieces helped us. Landscape analysis. So each of those pieces are vital, but the support that goes throughout, I think, is the most important thing. And I thank Save the Children for allowing that to happen in our community.
Deb, did you put in a question that you would like to answer as well? What was the community's response?
I did. I wanted to just take a moment to just let everyone know that the response from the community was really overwhelming. And I think that's, at the end of the day, why we work so hard in our communities to bridge the gap when it comes to hunger, especially when you're talking about children. So I wanted to just state again that the response from the community was so overwhelming, and everyone was just so excited to see this come to their community, and the impact that it had on these families was so rewarding for our coalition members to see how the families responded to the solution that they had come up with collectively. And so that was a really beautiful thing to watch unfold in the community, and for the coalition to get to witness and be excited about, so that it would continue to spur the work.
And I think that that's a sign that the program that was implemented is one that was wanted and needed by the community.
Absolutely.
Our community response was also fantastic. We now have come to the packing parties. We have the communities in schools, and we have school counselors, and one school even did a food drive for our Thanksgiving donations. So I just see more of a greater effort to come together and work together for these children to be successful.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending and for your questions. I'm going to pass it back to Jenny to close us out.
Thank you. So I want to give a big thank you to our speakers, Jill, Milena, Deborah, and Esther. That was really insightful. Thank you very much. Up next, we have our closing session where we will present the Hunger Free Communities Award. To join, click Agenda in your navigation bar on the left side of your screen. That concludes our time together. Have a great rest of your day.